Hello, hi everybody. Hello. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you all. Still got a few people in the waiting room, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm Rochelle Rose. I oversee all of the programming at the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, and it's a real treat to be able to connect with you and meet some of our community members through these Zoom chats. So thank you for joining us. Our COVID-19 fund is, of course, available to all of you, all fully paid up SAG-AFTRA members are eligible for the fund. We've given over $3.5 million to SAG-AFTRA members since the middle of March. Yay. And we're only able to do that. Actually, Netflix have been very generous in donating to our fund. And we've only been able to do that with the help of SAG-AFTRA members like yourself helping each other. So if you do need help, please ask. And if you are able to give, donations are 100% tax deductible, and 100% of the funds go straight to SAG-AFTRA members. Without any further ado, I want to introduce you to our two lovely casting directors today. They have won 2 Emmy Awards and I can't remember if they're nominated or awarded an Artios Award for their work on American Crime Story. They, of course, cast Hollywood. I know everybody's talking about Hollywood. So thank you for joining us today, Nicole and Courtney. It's wonderful to see you. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. So to begin with, I know this obviously is not the first project you've worked with Ryan Murphy on. So I'm wondering if you can give us the backstory and tell us how you first came to work with Ryan Murphy.
Well, our first show that we did with Ryan was American Crime Story, the O.J. Simpson story. And at that time, we had actually never worked in television. We had only done features. And when we had worked for Rana Kress years ago, we had done 2 pilots, but that was it. We'd never had a television show on our own or anything. And we got a call from Stephanie Levinson, who works with Sharon Klein at Fox, and said, there's this show, American Crime Story. It's with Ryan Murphy, Nina Jacobsen, and Brad Simpson. And instantly we were like, well, that sounds interesting, but super scary for, a first foray into television. But, we decided we should probably take the meeting, and we went on the meeting, and then that was it. And so we got the job, and it was probably one of, if not the hardest jobs that we had ever done because it was so new to us. And when we got the first script, there were over 100 roles for the first, I think it was 1 and 2, they were crossboarding, and there were over 100 roles to cast just in those 2 episodes, which is unheard of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was nerve-wracking, but yeah, so that was our first job that we did with Ryan. And then he brought us back for Versace, and we did another show that hasn't come out yet called Ratchet, including Hollywood also.
Amazing. So when did this discussion with you begin around Hollywood, the show Hollywood?
Hollywood,
I think
we were working on, oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
We were working on Ratchet. We started casting Ratchet, I'd say October 2018. And we were in the midst of Ratchet, and Ryan called, I don't know, I think it was early 2019 that he called. Yeah, sometime in like January or February. And he said, I have another script. It's called Hollywood. It's at Netflix. I would love for you guys to read it and take a look. Let me know if you'd be interested in collaborating on this one as well. And of course, we didn't even need to read the script to know that we wanted to collaborate on this one. But we read the script and thought it was fantastic, and knew that there would be so many incredible casting opportunities. So, and then I think we officially started in like April of last year.
And you know, this show, you know, so obviously has such an outstanding, like phenomenal ensemble, both a veteran cast and a young cast and a plethora of co-stars and guest stars who I feel like we've never seen before. So can you give us an idea of when you were attached to the project, how many people did Ryan already have in mind for specific roles, and were they offered those roles, and are you part of that process?
I think it
as with
generally
any
depends project to project. Oh, go ahead.
You go.
I think,
we'll switch off.
As Nicole was saying, yeah, okay, fine. With any project, yes, people do for sure come attached because he has his troupe that he goes to from project to project. And so when we came onto this, already Darren Criss was attached and David Cornsweet was attached, as well as Dylan and I believe Holland and Joe. Now it sounds like a lot, but like those people were, or actually Joe wasn't attached yet at that point, but everybody else was. And, you know, those are people that he's worked with multiple times in the past. So I'd say after those actors were set, we came on and started early discussions on Archie, Henrietta, obviously Rock Hudson,
Camille,
all of the other, Camille Washington and Claire. Yeah. So I would say Archie was probably the first up. That was a really important role to Ryan to get right.
So he obviously is incredible. Like Jeremy Pope blows this role out of the water. I think he is incredible. He's so compelling to watch. And I read that he was maybe the first person to audition and you knew immediately. So can you talk to us specifically about how the auditioning for that role, what the process for that role in particular was?
Courtney, I'll let you take this one because you were spearheaded that.
Okay, Nicole was on maternity leave at the very beginning of the show. So for Jeremy, it was, we read a number of people, but Gersh has this thing where they send out a blast every so often that says, these are the actors that we represent that are on Broadway. You know, we're in LA, they're in New York. So it's great. It's a great resource for us here. So I'm scrolling through and I come across a little blurb on Jeremy and I'm like, this guy seems super interesting, so handsome, clearly extremely talented, 2 shows. So I flagged it. It was pre-Hollywood. So I flagged it and was like, next time we get a role looking for a guy like this, I'm going to make sure that we see him. Cut to, we get the description for Archie. And I called his agents and said, he's got to tape right away. He was in New York. We were in LA. And normally how it goes is we audition people in person, we self-tape, we do all of that. We, in our office, review every single tape we get. We cull it down to our favorites that we then share with Ryan. And it's a streamlined process. He knows what to expect. We know what to expect. But for this particular role, when Jeremy's tape came in, I was like, I cannot sit on this and wait to share this. It was too good and too spot on. And I feel like I remember calling Nicole and saying, like, I have to break from the process and send this to Ryan because it's too good. He's going to get snatched up. It was pre-Tonys, but he had the nominations. And I just knew this guy was buzzing. So we sent it to Ryan and same day got a response. Yes, love this guy. I'm going to New York. I need to meet him. They met and then the rest is history. So it was just like, sometimes when you see it, you know, and you just have to like break the rules a little bit. And it proved, to be spot on. He's so fantastic.
So I'm going to address this to Nicole. So it sounds like you obviously have a workflow process down. The way you both work with Ryan, you have a working process. And I'm wondering, because, you know, you've worked with a lot of different producers, directors, studios, networks. Ryan seems like somebody who has a very strong vision And so can you describe to us how collaborating with Ryan might be different from working with other directors, showrunners, creators?
Absolutely. And you are completely right. Ryan does have a vision. I mean, he knows what he wants the 60th extra wearing in the crowd scene. I mean, it's really incredible listening to him and his process as he talks about the scripts. But even considering how strong his vision and his opinions are, he's incredibly collaborative. And not all producers and directors are as collaborative as he is. You know, oftentimes we get hired on a project and we kind of feel just like servicers, where, you know, directors or producers are just throwing ideas at us, and, you know, we try to spitball with them, but, you know, sometimes if we say white, then it's going to be black. And that does happen, and it's frustrating for us, but, you know, sometimes that just might not be the best fit between us and a director. Ryan is completely different. When we are in the midst of heavy casting, he calls us every single day. I want to go over names. I need more names. We go over lists. We'll spend an hour on the phone with him, go over ideas. He wants to know our opinion. He loves being introduced to new people. As Courtney mentioned, he has a company of actors, but that company is constantly growing. And he loves bringing new people into it. And yeah, I mean, I have to say that he is one of, if not the most collaborative people that we work with. It's such a treat.
It sounds like a joy. So one of the questions from the chat, from the Zoom chat that we have live today, is, you know, if you can identify if there's something that Ryan is looking for in particular. Are there recurring qualities which you see in actors that you could identify as things you know Ryan will approve of or be fond of?
I think having a trained actor goes so far with him. Somebody who has extensive training, who's studied the craft, who comes from the theater world. Those are things that give you high marks in Ryan's world, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's clear when we look at the ensemble. And it's amazing that you say he's constantly adding to that ensemble. So I know that, you know, we have an actress called Nicola Bertram who often participates in our programming, and I see that she's here. So I have to ask, people often ask us, you know, about working as co-stars. If they want to make that guest star jump, should they work as co-stars? And how do they make that leap from co-star to guest star? And I just remember being familiar with Nicola's story, and I think it's sort of the perfect illustration of that question. She plays the maid Gertrude, Rob Reiner's and Patti LuPone's maid. And from what I understand, she went, you know, I think she was booked for one day and ended up working for one episode and ended up working 3 or 4 and is in 3 episodes. Is that the kind of thing that happens a lot? And how do you prepare for that?
It happens all the time. I would say that actors should absolutely audition and be open to co-star roles. Because one, we are constantly hiring the same co-stars over and over again. Like, we also have a company, you know, like once you're in and we like you and we know that you show up to set and you make us look good, we bring you in on everything. We try to hire you on everything. So there's that. And then also, yes, I mean, especially on a Ryan show, we have actors who are booked for one co-star, and on a number of shows you work on, you know, not only Ryan shows, but number of shows you work on, you get booked for one day and you end up working for 10 episodes. If you show up on set and you do a good job and you bring a good attitude and you give a good performance, there's no reason to think that you won't be brought back again. If it's, you know, if it makes sense creatively.
Generally,
I also think, like, on top of that, what happens is, you know, he works with a number of high profile directors, and we will get calls from, you know, Dan Minahan directed an episode, and he'll say, who played nurse number 1 in episode 2? That actress was fantastic, and I have a part for her in my new show about Halston. Cut to, she's got the job in Halston that is a guest star, much bigger part. So that happens all the time. And, you know, Sarah Paulson will direct an episode of Horror Story, and she'll highlight a performance of a co-star that will be brought to our attention. Hey, you should check out this actress. Emily Mess, she's fantastic, and she ended up getting a big part in Ratchet because she did such a great job for a Horror Story episode that Sarah directed that we had nothing to do with. So it's really, you know, they're watching all the time. So it's a really great way to get your foot in, coming in for the co-star roles and never knowing what could happen next.
And especially on a Ryan show, you see even the extras are in the most fabulous hair and the most fabulous costumes. Like, everyone has the best time. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to. I mean, it looks like a lot of fun.
I think that's great advice. I'm fairly certain that everybody on this call would like to be part of Ryan's ensemble. So in that spirit, if somebody is auditioning for a co-star for Hollywood, how did that take place? Did people come into your office? Were all of the initial auditions self-taped? How did that process work at that level?
Pre-COVID, yes, all. For the most part, I mean, there are often times where we will get a call on Thursday saying, oh, by the way, this role was just written in for tomorrow. And in that case, we will ask people to self-tape within the hour. But under normal circumstances, yes, we audition all co-stars. I'd say we audition anywhere from, like, I don't know, 25 to 50 actors for a co-star role, and maybe we'll send 10 selects. That's generally how it works.
And then what kind of time frame do you have between getting your submissions to choose that the 20 that you'll get self-taped from? What's that time frame?
It varies from role to role and script to script. Generally speaking, episode 1, we have a significant amount of time to go through the process. And then by episode 7, we're really working on a time crunch. And like Nicole said, it could be same day. You know, we need 3 reporters that work tomorrow, and they all have speaking lines. So it's release it, select, watch the tapes, all within a matter of hours. Obviously, the preferred way of casting is to have much more time, but we get it done either way.
But on that note, I will say there's so often we send out a self-tape request to actors, and we'll say we need it ASAP or we need it tomorrow. And I'd say 5 times out of 10, we have an agent calling us saying, like, oh, but can we get an extension? Can it come on Monday? Can it take a little longer? And our answer is always like, do what you got to do, but the early bird gets the worm. You know, like, if it's impossible for you to tape and you have your other job that you have to go to, where there's something going on and you can't, that's completely understandable. But I would say, especially in episodic television, we move quickly. So if you're able to do that tape and get it in, it behooves you.
And the same thing, even in that time frame, even in that window of submissions, is it better to still get towards the early end of that window of submissions?
I don't think that necessarily matters. I mean, we look through it all, and how we generally use breakdown. And I don't know how their process is once you submit, how it gets into the system, but we look through it all, regardless of being the first one to submit or the last one to submit.
Yeah. And sometimes it's tricky because we definitely look through it quickly and call out auditions, but there are also times where, like, let's say we do read 50 people and we are just not getting it, and they say we need to read more, more, more. We'll go back through, and so maybe a late submission will end up getting the role. You know, that happens too.
Great. I think that's all good to know. One thing that I thought made this particularly complex, the job for you, the casting job of Hollywood, was the casting of all of these legendary people who most of us have all seen in multiple films, you know, from the people like Noel Coward to Vivian Leigh and Tallulah Bankhead and even Rock Hudson. So can you talk to us about your preparation in order to audition for those roles?
I think for us, it involves a lot of viewing clips online before we start the process. Ryan and his writing partner, Ian Brennan, will send us a description of exactly what they want in that character. We put up pictures all over the office of the real players, and then we will watch lots of tapes of the real actors so we know how we can actually nail it with the actors that we're hiring. And for, you know, it takes some time. I think for Vivian, we auditioned a number of actresses, and watching Katie McGinnis was so incredible. I thought she nailed it, and she just did a spectacular job. And same with Tallulah. That part, yeah, Paget Brewster was amazing. And we auditioned many, many, many people. And, you know, sometimes it starts with Ryan where he says he wants a big star to play the part. And with Anna May Wong, I would say, and Tallulah, we sort of had some preliminary conversations, but simultaneously we're always auditioning. Even if he says he wants a star, we have to cover our bases, and we're always auditioning people. And so with Paget and Michelle, who plays Anna May Wong, once he viewed their audition tapes, I think it was clear that they did the work as well. They put in the time to really understand the character and to get all the different cadence and personality quirks that they have. And so I just feel like they were really spectacular.
Yeah, so fun to watch too. Like, I thought Michelle was amazing, really, really stunning. So talking about, I mean, I don't know where to begin. There are so many great legendary older actors and so many fabulous newcomers, but sticking with the real people for a while, Jake Picking, you know, with Rock Hudson, that can't have been an easy role to cast, and he's perfect. Can you tell us a little bit about the process? How did you know he was right? How do you know when someone is right?
Well, I think you just have a feeling. And with Jake particularly, we had just hired him on a little independent film that Jeff Baina did with Allison Brie. And we had searched high and low for this guy, and Jake ended up getting the job. And then we get the casting for Rock, and you know, we thought, like, there's definitely a striking resemblance. Like, can he do it? Let's see. He actually was the very first person to audition for Rock, and he just came to our office, put it on tape, and we sent it to Ryan. But I will say we read a number of people for Rock. I mean, had to have been hundreds, right, Nicole?
Yeah, that we read a number of people for Rock. So it was also, I mean, it was a complicated role for many reasons. Obviously, Rock is such a legend. He does have a specific look. And also the material was going to be somewhat provocative. And the last thing we want is to hire an actor who shows up on set and decides that they're not comfortable with the material. So that we also just wanted to protect the actor and protect Ryan. And so that added another layer to that casting. But yeah, we auditioned a number of people for Rock. We knew it was important to get it right. So we just wanted to make sure that we covered all of our bases.
So I also read that in the case of Samara Weaving, who plays Claire, that she auditioned with sides from Some Like It Hot. So I'm assuming that you were unable to share the script with people during the audition process. So how do you break that down and figure out what you are going to give to actors as sides to audition?
Well, quickly about Samara, also, now that you mentioned that she read Some Like It Hot, I forgot this. She originally read for the Maud Apatow part. We weren't even aware of the Claire role. And she read for Henrietta the Maud part, and Ryan saw her audition, and he was like, there's going to be a new role. Her name is Claire. Samara's perfect. So that's just a side note, but it depends. On some projects, we're allowed to use material from the script. And I think for most of the co-stars in this project, we did. But for these roles, the scripts weren't even written yet. And, you know, we did want to be precious with them. So we just thought it would be interesting to audition with famous scenes from old Hollywood films. And our associate on this project, Stephanie Colley, is quite a cinephile, and she was really helpful. She would just scour different scenes from various films, and we just chose some, and Ryan approved, and we took it from there.
And so you're thinking about the quality of the character that you're looking for rather than anything else?
Oh, absolutely. Like for Henrietta, he wanted a young comedian. That's like what he kept on saying. He wants a young comedian. So, you know, Some Like It Hot seemed like the perfect fit to, you know, bring out the humor and the charm in someone.
So it seems like, you know, part of the raison d'etre for this project is representation, right? There's a huge part of this project is all about the meaning of representation. And so we have some questions on the Zoom chat about your role in that. Because you are female casting directors, do you think having female casting directors lends a different lens to the project in terms of diversity?
I mean, yeah, I suppose it does, but you know, we just kind of look at ourselves as fellow casting directors, and we just want to do as good a job as anyone would do. And you know, I will say, like, we're both mothers also, and our home life is also very important to us, and we always bring that to our work, and perhaps that shines through. I don't know. We just try to go to work and do the best job we can.
And can you talk a little bit about the diversity represented in Hollywood and how you found the right people for those roles?
Well, I think Ryan and Ian had a very clear vision of how they wanted the diversity to play out in this show. And that's not generally left up to us as the casting director. They come in with specific ideas of where they see parts. I do think, like, for Archie, that role initially was open to ethnicity. It wasn't necessarily, it didn't have to be an African-American actor, but there were so many layers to Jeremy Pope as a person and his performance that when we saw it, it just made perfect sense that Archie should be African-American. But generally speaking, it's Ryan and Ian who come to us and say how they want the diversity to break down. And if we feel strongly about it being one way or the other, we'll voice our opinion, but it generates from Ryan.
So we have some questions about whether or not you are on social media and whether or not it's appropriate to reach out to you both on social media for an introduction and to just stay in touch.
I have a private Instagram account and a private Facebook account. maybe one day we'll have a company Bright Daniels casting Instagram account, but I will say, like, I post pictures of my daughter, my husband, and it definitely feels personal to me. So that's not something that I generally.
But a company one sounds like a good idea. Like that actually could be really fun to do a company Instagram. But yeah, same thing. My stuff is super private. I'm very private. I'm happy to chit chat and see actors when they come to the office and at work functions. But like in my private life, that's my family time.
So what about postcards? Do you like postcards, or is there another way in which actors can communicate with you? Or
I would say regarding the postcards, I love supporting the Postal Service, so I'm all for that, but maybe save your money. They don't always, I don't know if you get your bang for your buck, at least in our office. But yeah, no, I mean, we definitely get unsolicited emails and sometimes it turns into something. I will also say that at our office, we definitely, I know that I've seen some of these questions come in, we definitely are open to hiring unrepresented actors. And there are certain roles that we'll release both on Breakdown Express and Actors Access. So that's definitely something we're open to. And we also, when we aren't doing TV or movies, we do commercials. And that is a really good way to get in front of us. Because with commercials, it really is like quantity. We see 300 people for one role. And so often we'll have just done a commercial and a role will come up in a Ryan show or anything. And we'll say, oh, what about that person we brought on the commercial? We have to bring them in. So, I would say Actors Access, auditioning for commercials if you can. And yeah, sure, an unsolicited email. Sometimes it works.
I think the best is to come in and audition and do a great job. Whether or not you get the part, we will notice you. And I'm recognizing a lot of actors that we audition constantly that are commenting, which is really fun. But like they could vouch for us. We bring them in over and over and over again. Nicola's a perfect example of that as well. So I think coming in and doing a good job and knowing that we're watching and we're paying attention is a much better use of their time than sending in the postcards.
Great, thank you for that. And can you tell us, do you have particular agents, and is it important to you what tier of agencies someone is represented by?
No, we don't discriminate in A-list versus C-list or however it breaks down. Some of our favorite agents are at the teeny tiny agencies, and what matters is that the agents that we continually bring in clients from are actors who always do a good job. People we know we can count on. If I see from agent A constantly they're sending us people that can come in and be professional and give a good reading and, you know, time and time again, we will bring them back. So that's who we go to. We have a handful of these smaller agencies that represent exceptionally talented people, and we bring them in all the time.
And those are also the agents, as we were talking about before. Sometimes we'll get a call, you know, from the producer saying, we need 6 reporters tomorrow. And sometimes even too much for us to like go on Breakdown Express. We're on such a time crunch. So we'll send out a blast to like 15 of those agents. For reporters, for example, like we would definitely email Michael Zanuck. We love Brittany Stone at Lovestone. There's agents at these smaller agencies that we are constantly going to and constantly hiring from. I mean, I think that we probably hire at least 200 Aqua Talent clients, like without a doubt.
Yes.
Thank you. Generous to share particulars.
Yeah.
Do we know about a second season of Hollywood? Is that something that's been announced? Will there be another season?
I don't know.
We are not.
I believe that's the plan, but I don't know anything about it.
Well, we certainly hope so. So we're getting a lot of questions. You know, there have been some preliminary guidelines which some studio heads and other people have sort of laid out in articles that we've seen in the press this week. And a lot of it talks about what might happen with co-stars, guest stars, day players, background in the future. And of course, all of those background scenes, like outside the studio each morning on Hollywood and just all of the party scenes, you know, the background is fabulous, as are all the co-stars and guest stars. Do you have any idea or thoughts about those preliminary guidelines or how that might roll out when we go back into production?
I think it's really tricky, and there's still so many things that are unknown that it's too early to make any calls about how the process will change. I mean, it definitely will change, but how exactly, I don't think we'll know for quite some time. I mean, we were on 3 shows pre-COVID that were in production, and we have no idea when and how those are going to come about again. So we've, you know, heard some rumblings by the end of the year, but we just don't know. We don't know. Sort of a nothing answer, but.
No, I think it's just as comforting to hear that no one else knows than to feel like you're the only person who doesn't know. So thank you for sharing. Yeah. So a question I wanted to ask you about is resumes. You've talked about how Ryan loves theatre actors and how that's really important to him. Are there particular acting teachers or MFA or BFA programs that jump out to you when you look at people's resumes?
I mean, yes and no. Of course, like if someone just graduated from Carnegie Mellon, we're definitely going to take notice. But I would say we're very open. You know, I think a fantastic actor could get a, you know, BFA from anywhere. So of course there's, you know, those hot like Carnegie Mellon or Juilliard or, you know, that we definitely, our ears perk up. But I would say we don't discriminate against anyone or anything.
Great. Then we have some questions about self-taped auditions. You know, so many people are used to putting themselves on tape now for self-taped auditions. So does that make the quality more important? Do you have higher expectations now that everybody's doing it? And can you give us maybe some top tips for self-taping for your office?
We're always open to viewing self-tapes, and we generally sort of put it out like if an actor prefers to self-tape rather than come into the office, we're always okay with that. If it's just for Nicole and I, we're totally okay with an actor making a self-tape. That being said, because they have, you know, ample opportunity to do it over and over until they get it really right, we would expect that it was a pretty polished performance on the self-tape. And I think, you know, just having a reader off stage is really helpful. It can be distracting sometimes when that's not the case. Lighting is important. Sound is important. But I think just knowing that they have the freedom to get it right in their own space, and that I think just makes us want to see that they got it right.
Yeah. And do you have any tips for performance, for sort of making those strong choices, for analyzing the script very quickly? And if you think people have made great choices but the wrong choices, but do you give feedback to the agents about those tapes?
If we see a tape and we know that there's something promising there, but the actor just kind of might have missed the mark a little bit, we will ask them to tape again. We do that all the time. So, you know, we definitely have the option to retape if maybe you just didn't get the tone exactly right. Or, you know, sometimes, especially if you're reading dummy sides, it's hard to get the tone right. You know, you don't necessarily know what we're looking for. And so often we rarely send out a script. So we understand that you guys are all really like, you know, shooting in the dark. So we're open to watching and giving notes and asking you to retape.
And do you have any tips for sort of analyzing scripts quickly and making great choices and connecting to the material to produce a great performance?
I think, you know, since we do tend to do a lot of casting of real people, just like common sense, do your research just like we do. We do it ahead of time so we know that we're getting the right performance, and I think that's important for actors. I do think that bringing their own take is important as well, and not just mimicking a real life person. I think seeing an actor put their own spin is really refreshing and can make you stand out from a group of people who are just doing an imitation.
Yeah, great advice, research. I love those scenes with Holland Taylor, where she's coaching all of the contract players with their accents. So we've had a couple of questions about accents. One of them is, did the girls on set have a dialect coach to get that perfect mid-Atlantic accent?
I don't know for certain, but I imagine there was a dialect coach on set. But I actually don't know the answer.
And then the other question is, if you're auditioning for a character which does have an accent which is different from your own, should you slate in the accent you're looking for or your native accent?
You know, that's totally personal. I feel like whatever the actor wants to do, we have actors, it won't make a difference in them getting the job or not for us. It's totally up to them. But it's always funny when an actor whose English comes in, does the slate American, does the scene American, and then walks out and is like, cheerio. And we're like, oh my goodness, you're not American? That's wild, you know? So it's fun, but actors can do whatever they want.
That's good to know. So somebody is asking about Dorothy Asner and how you found her in particular.
So she has a very specific look, and that was one of those ones that happened pretty quickly. And the actress that we hired to play her, I mean, there was nobody else. Her look was so perfect. I mean, if you put them side by side, it's like you're looking at the same person. And also, you know, that was a risque, provocative role. So we needed to make sure whomever we got was okay with the material. And a lot of times from the very beginning, to avoid any confusion down the line, when we release our breakdown, we put out what our expectations are for the role. So we know that everybody's on the same page. There are no surprises on our end, and there are no surprises on the actor's end. But Dorothy, I mean, she looks just like her. It was incredible.
Yeah, she's fantastic. So one question is websites. When do you look at actors' websites? How important are they? What ideally do you want to find on an actor's website?
I don't know how often I've actually looked at an actor's website, but we definitely get sent, we look at the reel. I'd say the reel and pictures and resumes. But yeah,
having like an easy to read website is important. Like, or, you know, when we get sent their reels from their agents, just so that it's like clear, easy, not super busy. We just want to see a clip of this, a clip of that. We don't need a music video montage or any of that. But just, you know, really a clean website where we can sort of get a feel for the actor, but we don't need any bells and whistles.
That's great. Someone is asking about this. Sorry, it's a bit of a left turn, but someone's asking about Sofia Coppola, that you've worked with her so often and that she tends to have lesser known people in her projects, and also she has a very specific style as well. So can you tell us a little bit about working with Sofia and how that process might be different?
I mean, working with Sophia is a dream, as you can imagine. She's also incredibly opinionated and has a vision, but is also incredibly collaborative. Sophia is someone that loves watching clips on YouTube. She loves watching, we just, in her last movie, we cast Jenny Slate, and we love Jenny Slate, but Sophia had seen Jenny Slate on Jimmy Kimmel and was really taken with her. So Sophia kind of beats to her own drum when it comes to finding actors and new faces. She's obviously very immersed in the fashion world. She's got a tween daughter who I know has her ear and tells her about all the, cool new young things. So with Sophia, it's definitely a little more Wild West. We kind of pull from everywhere, and she's definitely open to brand new faces. We go to, for the Bling Ring, we went to a number of local LA high school theater productions because she just wanted real kids. So we definitely, we really need to think outside the box with her, just because she is looking oftentimes for, amateurs.
It's fascinating. And so it leads me to a question. We have people on the chat right now from all over the country and indeed other countries. So I want to ask you, everybody's asking about local hires and how that works. I'm sure it's different project to project. So with Hollywood, did you have a budget to travel people to LA if they weren't local hires?
Not really for co-stars and guest stars, which is becoming more and more the case, unfortunately. Although a couple like Katie McGinnis.
Well, Katie, yeah, but once he fell in love with, I feel like once we can say as much as we want that we only want local hires for a particular part, and we do stick to it 90% of the time, but then you get an audition like Katie McGinnis for Vivian, and they figure it out. They find a way. She had a really complicated schedule because she's on another TV show. So flying her back and forth from Vancouver while she was filming, I think she's on Snowpiercer. And so that was really challenging, but it paid off. She was the right person for the job. So.
But I would say with co-stars, it's local. Yeah. There's no money in the budget. Things move so quickly. Our schedule, sometimes we're cross-boarding 4 episodes. We just need a co-star who is available at a moment's notice.
Mm-hmm. So we're coming close to the end of our time together. So I'd just love to ask you both what you're proudest of when you watch Hollywood now and you see the whole thing in its entirety. What are you proudest of?
I mean, I think our ensemble speaks for itself, but it's really the chemistry between all of them is so incredible. And watching Jeremy and Jake, and I actually have to say one of my favorite parts that I feel like is a scene stealer throughout the entire series is Mira Sorvino. And so every time she comes on screen, I am ear to ear. She is just breathtaking. Her performance is so beautiful. And I feel really, really good about that part because that was a very important part to Ryan. And he's so good at bringing somebody sort of back, not that she was gone, but putting her up there in such a big way right now. It just was incredible. I thought, wow, that really made me proud to watch Mira.
Yeah, I completely agree about Mira. I love Mira so much. She was so fantastic in this part. I can't wait to cast her again. And just to add to that, I know we spoke about it in the beginning, but like Ryan really, he creates a family, and he continues not only to work with the same actors, but he works with the same crews. And it's just so fun and rewarding to be a part of these shows. You go to the production meetings and you see familiar faces, and we all start to kind of understand exactly what he's looking for. And it's just the most rewarding experience, like being in the Ryan Murphy television world. It's like, I feel so grateful.
I couldn't agree more. Mira was absolutely heartbreaking. So thank you for giving that to us. Thank you so much for joining us today, girls. It's been a real treat to hear the insights from you, from your side, and thank you for answering all of our other questions as well. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay,
Thanks
we're going to have a little round of applause for you here.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us from home. It's wonderful to see you all, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Bye.